Hello guys, David Vos here. Well, it started off a beautiful day here for me, and it quickly, and maybe it was slowly, I don't know, but it got to a place where it was not a good day. But to start with, before I even tell you this, I hope you had a wonderful day. I really hope you did, and I want to tell you about my day, but it's going to be a long, boring process to tell you about what happened to me today. So, I've already told you guys, I already was talking for about 13 minutes. And then I decided to come back and put this little disclaimer. If you don't want to be bored out of your mind, skip over these next 13 minutes. However, it would be helpful if you understood the situation that I was in for for the day. And as I explained during these 13 minutes, from about another 30 seconds on, go another 13 minutes, so about like 15 minutes in. And just don't watch that if you don't want to be bored out of your mind. But on the other hand, if you could pay attention to what I'm saying, it serves as a foundation and a basis for everything else I'm going to say. So the first 13, 14 minutes from here on is going to be a little boring. And then I think it has a couple of moments, but we might do another 20 minutes of putting down more foundation. So if you're really busy and you don't want to waste any of your time, go like 30 minutes in or something. I'm not sure exactly where. But about half this video is going to be a lot of foundation building. And I had some, illustrations and thoughts and words that I uttered, and I didn't want to erase them. They might be a little boring, but I think it sets the stage for what I want to say to you. And I do think the video gets very interesting and compelling at the end. I think it's important to watch this video if you can get through all of this. But I had thought that I was going to go take a walk. There was a place I saw yesterday when I was walking up on the cliffs, and there's some bigger cliffs up there and some beautiful trees and stuff, and I was going to go over there. But my car has a problem with the oil sensor, pressure sender, whatever, so I got one, and I was going to put it on and change the oil, and I said, well, I'll do that today. I can probably do that within an hour, changing the oil and stuff. It wouldn't take very long. And this little sensor thing just screws out, and you put another one on and click it back on. So I popped the hood and figured out finally how to get this little it's kind of a cover over the engine. It's a black cover that pops on over the manifold, and I pulled that up, finally figured that out. And and I'd already been through this a little bit and figured out where it was, so I knew it was behind the whole engine, back in that little cove where the transmission goes back. You can just barely get your hand back in there, and so you can't see what you're doing. And I was already told that I needed to have a longer extension on my wrench and perhaps a swivel to get to it. So the other day when I was in town, I went to Walmart. I was already there. And boy, I wish I would have gotten it at O'Reilly's or AutoZone or something. I had gone to O'Reilly's to get the oil and the filter and the part. And I got the wrench. It requires a special socket, even though it's the same size as a normal socket, but it has rounded edges. So they specifically make this socket. And they specifically designed this sensor to be taken off with a special socket. You don't need to, but they did that because they can make about $20 a shot for people who need to do that. So if you're going to go buy your sensor, which was $50, $49, you're also going to be required to get an extra socket for about $20. And then if you don't have a swivel extension and all of this, you're going to have to buy that. So I'm already at Walmart. I didn't get the wrench at AutoZone or whatever it was because I thought, well, I think I actually kind of forgot to get it. I thought I had it, and then I realized I needed the swivel part and so forth. So I was at Walmart already, and of course, I thought, oh, I'll just go over there and get the wrench. I just need a little piece. Well, of course, it's all locked up in glass. All the tools are behind glass. And I thought, well, that's an inconvenience, but I'll call somebody and have them open it up so I can get what I need. Well, they have everything in such a way that you almost have to get into the case, have it open, and look at several things and examine them because I needed to know the size of each of these extension bars and stuff. There can be 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch or 3/8 and stuff. And you can't just always tell by looking, and you want to know which one's the cheapest and all of that. So the guy opens it, and I'm trying to figure out, of course, what I'm looking at is partly on the side that he opened and partly on the side that he didn't open. So I'm trying to be polite and look at everything I can in the area that he opened. And I wasn't sure I needed to buy that. I thought it might be in the other compartment, so I had him open that. And I was looking, and he was getting very impatient, and he said, look, I got to go. I ain't got time for this. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? I need to get this piece, and you're rushing me. And I'm going to end up getting the wrong piece because I need to check the prices, and I need to check the sizes, and I need to search for the swivel that's just separate and all of this. And he kind of, he was all upset. And then somebody came and wanted in down a few feet from me. They wanted in there. And he said, well, I'm going to go help this other customer. But you can't be looking at anything while I'm gone because you might steal it. So I'm going to shut the glass and I'm going to go help this other customer. And I'm just like, well, look, you already opened it. You're already helping me. I know this is hard for you to stand and be patient. But if you don't want to wait for me, you could keep and leave this open for me so that I can look and see what I'm buying. Well, he said, no, I can't do that. And then I said, well, then you'll have to help me until I'm finished getting what I need. Really, it was getting to the point where, look, and then it's not like I had been there for 20 minutes or something. It was about 5 minutes of me looking, but I was being pressured and forced to go quickly because he was threatening to leave and wasn't going to help me anymore. So I ended up just grabbing the whole, you have to buy the whole box that has everything in it. Because I couldn't find the piece that I needed and he wouldn't give me time. It had the extension I noticed on the front. And I assumed it had the swivel part too, a little part that you could stick on and make a swivel. They usually do. But I couldn't go through all the different parts that were in that box. So I ended up just going ahead and taking it because I didn't really have time. Well, I get it home today and it doesn't have the swivel. And I thought, well, I'll probably still be able to get it off. So I get my hand back in there and I realize I can only get one hand and I'm laying on top of the engine. It's very uncomfortable. Things are poking me. And every time I move one way, I hear a tss sound, and I don't know what I'm relieving pressure from. Looked like the brake line or something. I don't know what was going on. I couldn't really comfortably sit there very long. So I'm trying to get this wrench on there, and it won't work. I mean, I tried for 30 minutes to get the wrench on, and it just won't fit without that swivel. So I'm like, okay, I needed the swivel, and the guy kind of, I mean, I'm blaming him for it. I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, you should have been more careful before you came home and made sure you had that part, but it was just a lot of trouble. And at this point, I was blaming him. And I'm just so upset with Walmart. I'm about to boycott the entire store again because they were so rude, and they always are. You can't, everything's behind glass, and they don't want to help you, and they won't stand there and let you figure out what you want. So I'm back there trying to get this thing off. Now, before you get the wrench on there and screw it off, which I was never able to do, you got to take the wiring harness connector off. Well, you can't see it. And there is no, you can't just pull it off. There is a secret code that you cannot see. And I even, when I was at O'Reilly's, had him show me a picture in the computer what the harness looked like. Because when I got there, he said, well, there's two different kinds. Which one do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. I told him the engine, everything, the brand, everything, the specs. He said, well, they're giving me two options. And evidently the only way you're going to know is you have to take the part off and bring it into me. And I'm like, well, I can't get the part off, today. I'm driving into town 65 miles to get this. So I was out in the parking lot for about 20 minutes trying to find some glimpse through a little hole in this bracket that maybe I could catch some glimpse to figure out which one it was. And I noticed there was a little blue on it. And when I went in there and I had him go through all the pictures, and I found the one that had the blue on it, I said, that's the one I needed. So that was a big ordeal anyway. But when he showed me the harness, I didn't think to look carefully, and he didn't have time for me to look at the pictures. And yes, I did try to go on my phone and get pictures of all this. In fact, there's a lot of people on the internet having the same problem. And in every case, they tell you the problem, and nobody seems to know how it works. Eventually, after half the day, I did find one little video that a guy made where he showed exactly how to get it off and how to lift the little there's a little secret way that you have to pull this little white thing up. Now, in all the instructions, they all say the gray thing. And I never saw a gray thing on mine. And that took me another 30 minutes of rigmarole to figure out they were talking about the white thing. So when I was completely sure they meant the white thing, they said just it pulls straight up. Well, I could only feel it with my fingers. I couldn't see it. And it didn't have any apparent ability to pull on it. I couldn't see it. It was a nightmare. And I finally got the little harness connector off. And when I went to put my wrench on, and I spent 2 or 3 hours trying to get that wrench to work, but it just won't work. There's a hose right in the way. And I thought, well, I'll pull the hose off and I'll be able to do it. But I worked on trying to get the hose off for about another hour. And it's got like a little thing where if you had pliers and you could see it, you could pull the little wire together and it would open it like a radiator hose has a little clamp, and you press on from both sides and it expands the circle, and then you can pull it back, and then you can pull the hose off, right? Sounds simple, but I couldn't see the little prongs, and I couldn't even get my pliers back in there, and I'd already banged up my hand because I dropped the wrench down inside there up underneath the transmission, and one of the handle got stuck inside the plate, and it took me another 30 minutes to get that out of there. So in the end, it just didn't work. I couldn't get it off. So I'm going to have to go back into town 65 miles as soon as I can get a chance and get me a swivel for my wrench and hope that I can get it off then. Now, the reason I told you that whole story, it took me 13 minutes. And I also want to add, that wasn't even half the story. Suffice it to say, I had an ordeal. Literally. Insanity. It shouldn't have been that way. It should be much easier to get the connector off the sensor. There should be just something to push and then lift or something simple, but it's not. And you shouldn't have to buy an extra wrench just for every little bolt on your car or everything you got to do. It should be a lot easier, but it ain't. But I wanted you to see the extent that I went through today because of some system that we live in based on greed. And that was only part of my day. I don't want to live in this world. I don't want to live in society. I want to boycott the stores and never go back. And I'm out of the system as about as I would say about as well as most people I've ever known. I do very little business in town. I don't go to town but maybe once a month. But I'm still not there because I haven't found a good way to start collecting my acorns and stuff where I don't have to go back to town. And developing a taste, and it's going to be a long haul to try and figure out recipes and try and figure out how I'm going to be able to live exclusively on pine nuts and acorns and pine needles and whatever else, yucca and whatever else I can eat out here. It's going to be a process, and I'm not quite there yet. So I do buy potatoes, and, last two bags of potatoes I bought up at this little store where I have to go to 10 miles from me. The potatoes are brown on the inside. Just about everything I buy at that little store is no good, and I don't want to complain because I'm just grateful that they have anything. If I start complaining, they won't carry anything. And I don't want to complain. But I waste a lot of money just buying things at that store. It all spoils, But I bought milk that was spoiled. Thank goodness I don't really eat meat. But if a person had to eat meat, I wouldn't buy it there. Somehow or another, it just doesn't seem like it's up to code. And I'm to the point now where I won't buy meat at any store because I don't think that any of it's real. I've come to the point where I realize that the flour and all the things, even if you want to make your own bread and stuff, if you buy flour, you think, well, it's just flour. Look on the ingredients, just whole wheat flour. That's all that's in there. What they don't tell you is what they've soaked it in, the chemicals, and sprayed on it, and the genetically modifications and stuff like this. But the worst thing about most flour, especially white flour, and I'm not completely certain about all the brown flour, but what they don't tell you is that in order to make that flour white, it's not only bleached with bleach and, I'm told, peroxide, but other chemicals that are deadly poison. And what they didn't tell us, and I don't know if you don't ask the question, I don't think they tell you anywhere, but just about all the food out there, including the flour, has formaldehyde in it. And if you're sensitive to it, you'll see that it's very bad for you if you eat that kind of stuff. And I know that a lot of you are saying, yeah, Dave, we know that stuff poisons in our food and everything, like that, but yet we're still eating it. And when I say formaldehyde, I don't think there's 1% of you that understands what I'm saying. Formaldehyde is deadly poison, and they put enough in there to kill you. It takes a period of time. You start getting sick when you eat this kind of food. And you won't live very long. And you'll have cancer, and you'll have problems, and arthritis. Because it strips all the bio out of your gut. There's biocides, insecticide, pesticide in the food. And formaldehyde is something that you use. It's a biocide. It strips you of all biological living organisms. And if you eat bread every day, you're not. Think about the fact that most all the food you eat has this in it. If it's been on the shelf for any length of time, it's got to have not just preservatives, but a lot of the flour-based stuff has formaldehyde. And McDonald's is full of formaldehyde. That's why you can leave it out on the counter for a year and it never spoils, never gets moldy. Because all of McDonald's food and all the other places and the Burger Kings and everybody else, the whole thing that you're eating is full of formaldehyde. It will kill you deader than a doornail. But I understand a lot of you know it's poison, but you don't realize just how bad it is. If you want to find a way to eat right, you've got to eat natural, whole food that you get in nature. We have to stop eating this food that they're giving us. It's not food at all. They're going to be genociding us in waves very soon here, and this is what the video is about. So it isn't a matter of just avoiding boxed food, canned food, processed food. You have to avoid corn altogether. It's all genetically modified, and it is bad for you. It's got biocides and pesticides and insecticides right in the corn and soy, and I think probably the wheat now and everything else. I don't know, but just about everything. And so it's almost impossible to live in this world. But everything that you buy, let's say you're a person in the world and you want to have a vehicle and you haven't gotten out of the world and you're trying to live the life. So you go and you get this good job and you got a lot of money and you think, I'm going to take this money and buy me a truck. Well, that truck is going to break down on schedule. And then it's going to be needing some particular part that they have already known that you might need. And therefore, they're going to make it very difficult to get to that part, to the point where it is so difficult, you'll probably want to go and take it to a mechanic. Now, the mechanics nowadays are all full up. If you go to a tire shop, you're going to have to get an appointment. Now, that would be all right. You can just make your own appointment. But you have to understand that because of that, they know that you need them so bad, they're going to charge you twice as much money as it's worth. And maybe 3 times. And they're not even going to care whether they do a good job. And if you tell them, I want this, that, and the other thing done, they won't do it. And when you get there, you'll say, oh, but I needed this, that, and the other thing. Oh, well, we ain't got time today. But I told you before I brought it in. Well, I'm sorry, we didn't have time. All we did was this or whatever. So you're going to be in a nightmare unless you are a millionaire where you can just have all this done and you can hire people to get this done for you. So you're going to run around and spend your entire day. If your car's broke down, you're probably going to spend a fortune. I remember when it used to be that you could have ball joints put on or something for a couple $100. And now it's like $700, $800, $900 to put a ball joint on. I think I paid $1,300 at this place down here to get, I had brakes put on and the, I think it was ball joints. And trust me, I don't have the money for that kind of thing. I don't have any money left over at all. I'm not getting any monetization here on YouTube. Although I've applied for monetization again, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. I might get it, but it's been over a year. I haven't had any monetization. And if it weren't for the fact that the Lord takes care of me, I mean, right when my vehicle was in this particular situation and I needed this, somebody sent me a little bit of support because of the videos that I do. And the Lord, I guess, prompted them to send me a little money, and I was able to get the brakes and the ball joints, although there's so many other things I need to do. But I was grateful for that. I think it was over 1,000. I think it was $1,300. And they didn't do anything. My brakes are worse than they were when I got there. And I told the man when I got there, after he finished it, I said, they're not correct. You can push the pedal down halfway to the floor. And when it hits, you don't actually, like, hey, stop. It just sort of starts slowing down barely. And you can, I have brakes, but I want them the way they were when they're operating properly, where you just touch them and you stop. I don't want this push the pedal down half the way. And he said, well, that's not our problem. That's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I put the new brakes on, and I said, well, maybe you need to bleed it. And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm the mechanic. We don't need to bleed it. We don't have to do that. I'm like, well, if you didn't bleed it, that's probably the problem. But what I told you when I started, I was telling him, is that there's a light on my dash that says that the traction control on my vehicle was needing service. And I'm not even really sure what that does, traction control, but I thought it might have something to do with the brakes. But regardless, something needed to be done with the brakes to make them stop correctly. And they charge a lot of money to do the brakes, but they refused to make the brakes work properly. And really, there's nothing you can do. I mean, they didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to be nice. They were very rude because they don't care if I ever come back. They don't even want to be there. I mean, the owner probably lives in New York or something. And these people are all just working there. And you can tell that they're literally perturbed if you even ask them a question. So, you just can't get your vehicle worked on unless you have a fortune. It's to the point now where I don't think normal people can afford to drive anymore. You can do it. You think you can do it. But once you buy your vehicle and find out the expense it's going to take to repair it, you might go for 6 months to a year, and then it's going to break down. And it's going to cost you a lot. And even if you can fix it yourself, the headaches that come with just doing stuff like that. And we're just talking about one aspect of life, your car. You've got heaters and air conditioners in your home. You got your roof, your yard, your motorcycles and your lawn equipment and your chainsaw and your kitchen equipment, your furnace at your house, your hot water tank. You've got your shoes that aren't any good anymore. You buy a shoe and it lasts you a few weeks and the bottom's coming off and they don't fit right. They feel like you put your foot inside of a new shoe and it literally feels like you've got one sock just wadded up down in the toe area and it's stuck in there. And you pull your foot out and you look and everything's fine. Your sock's on perfectly fine. So you feel in there and you don't feel anything. You put your foot back in. Again, it feels like you're walking on wadded socks inside your shoe. And this is a brand new shoe, and I've tried several different shoes. Well, I don't buy them new because, I go to Goodwill and usually you can find better shoes there at Goodwill, but not anymore. And they're all very difficult. They wear right out. It's crazy. So you buy clothes, you wear them, and then to wash them, it costs, if you go to the laundromat, it costs $5 for a washing machine and another couple of dollars for drying them. So if you've only got a few things to wash, it almost feels like it's more money to wash the clothes than to buy new ones sometimes. And it takes a lot of time and effort. So it's one thing after the other, problem after problem after problem, that day after day after day I try to ignore. And this is what I want to say. A lot of you aren't having a good time. You're depressed. Things are hectic. You're unhappy. You're miserable, maybe. You just don't like the way things are going in your life. Well, let me give you a little help here. It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. The people that run this world are trying to... It's like a pedophile that doesn't have any worries about doing whatever he wants to do. And he's got all these children. So he doesn't like it when his little pedophile victims squirm and try to run away. So he has to starve them and make them feel like they can't run. Scare them, psych them out, and keep them in a state of horror so they don't run away. So that it makes it easier for him to rape his little children. And so not only are you going to get raped and abused, but you're going to be tortured and kept in a state of terror because this man has his designs on you. And nobody can stop this man because he has all the money and he's thinking of a plan right now to make sure that we all become forever enslaved and we cannot ever leave. In the past, they made things like cars that we couldn't refuse, and they know we like them. They charged us a lot more money than what they had to charge for them. They made it difficult to work on them so that you would have to take them to a mechanic. They make all these crises so that goods and services go up. And this causes another crisis. And then they get us all worried about who we're going to vote for. And then the pendulum swings back and we get the famine and the pestilence and the war. Somebody just sent me a video, a friend of mine, and it's about Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam. Now, I've heard a lot about this, and I've mentioned it a lot, but I don't think I ever really knew what it was in the sense of, like, I know about all these conspiracies and all these things that are happening to us. I know the sky is falling. I know the water's poison. I know the food is poison. I know they're torturing us. I know we're going downhill fast, but there's so many of these different departments of going downhill fast. There's so many of these programs that they've got set up to make us all die and suffer that sometimes we don't pay a lot of attention to exactly what department of the government to keep us down we're actually talking about. So we've got HARP and different things, you know. Well, evidently there was a guy that wrote a book. He was in NASA. I guess it was NASA, some big government guy. And he ended up leaving, and then he wrote this book. Well, I already got suspicions right there. I don't believe they let people just write books. I don't trust anyone whatsoever, even if they're, you know, trying to warn us and they're trying to tell you that something's going wrong. I mean, we talked about Whitney Webb, that I think is a plant, and Cliff High, which is a government propagandist. And so many of these individuals are teaching us or telling us all these things that are true. Well, all of a sudden, no, the planes are spewing out exhaust and it's all poison. Well, that's an over exaggerated thing. Airplanes do have exhaust, and so do cars. And that is poison, yes, probably. But as far as seeding the clouds and stuff, those are different planes, and we hardly see those. But there are planes like that. So we don't know whether we're coming and going, but we know there's a lot of things going on. And so I didn't know for sure, but this guy came out of NASA, wrote a book about Project Bluebeam. Now, when you read about, I didn't read it, it was a small book. The guy that I watched in the video read it, the book to us. And I can't repeat the whole thing, but it's just that they've had this plan since the 80s or something, that they were going to have all these towers, radio towers, and they've got all these inventions in AI, and they're going to start doing... Now, remember, he wrote this book in 1980 or something. So this hadn't happened yet. It is happening now, what he said. That they would have UFO sightings everywhere. That there would be portals seen in the sky and stuff. We're seeing that. Crazy things going on that we're seeing. And that the government would talk about it and say, okay, there are planets out there. There are other alien beings that are trying to kill us. They're all coming together to kill us. We've got to join together in one world government to fight these guys. Or something like, we're having a war. They cause earthquakes. It mentioned in this book that they're going to cause earthquakes and hurricanes and weather events. And then while we're in some war or some pandemic and some famine or whatever is going on, the world is just completely in shock and horror. At this point, we're going to start seeing these things in the sky. Now, I told you guys I had a series of waking visions where I saw this years ago, and I didn't talk much about it because I thought, what the, you know? But I could vividly see these huge motherships and other ships just floating around in the sky, and everybody in the world just like standing and frozen, looking up. And then they were rounding people up, and it was like a fake rapture going on in this vision and stuff. So that's one of the things that the book says, that they're going to have a fake rapture with like these pictures you see in the movies with these UFOs that hover, and then they have a beam of light and crowds of people just get sucked up in the... all this is going on. And that they're going to have machines and mechanical ways to read your mind and to speak to you telepathically or through some new invention that they have. I don't remember all the detailed nuances and the names of all these devices, but they have the ability to communicate with you through the air and put voices in your head. And so, I talked about a friend of mine that really I've known for many, many years, a really good friend, a decent person. But some years ago, out of nowhere, he just started hearing these voices. And they're telling him, oddly enough, things that you wouldn't think would be Jesus or his angels, because they're denying Jesus in some sense. I don't think he denies that Jesus existed, but he has no love for Jesus. He doesn't care anything about Jesus. He doesn't believe Jesus is coming again or setting up his kingdom. And he's never read the Bible. He's never read anything. He doesn't have any knowledge, but these voices telling him all this stuff. And he believes the world's going to come to an end in May of this year. And that's it. It's going to be over. And, he's like trying to tell everybody not to believe in Jesus or something. I don't know. It's crazy. He's got his own views. And I try not to, I remember years ago when this first started happening, he was trying to tell me this stuff, and we got into a big argument about it. I said, "Man, I do not believe in this stuff. I think this is demonic. I don't. I believe in Jesus, and you got a problem, and I'm worried about you." And we had this argument. So he got really mad at me, and we went our way that day. And then that evening, he had written a whole page in his own handwriting with weird symbols and all kinds of crazy things on it. And they told him to write it and post it on my door while I was at work. When I came home, it was taped to the door. And I read it, and it was almost like the Antichrist manifesto. I mean, you know, what I thought was odd about the letter was it was at this time that he kept talking about we. He would never say I, he'd always say we. And it was always they. And I was like, who are they? And who is we? And all. He's like, well, they're my these beings that are living through me. And I I didn't want to be rude, or we had been good friends, but I had to wonder, who these beings were. And so I didn't have much good to say about it. But when in the letter he was saying, we have been talking to your friend, and we're telling him to tell you to listen to what we have to say because you won't listen. But your friend is listening, and we're using him to get to you. And I thought, what? That's crazy, because there is no way on this earth that I will ever, ever decide that I'm no longer going to believe in Jesus, because I've seen Jesus. And I've studied my Bible my entire life, and I've seen this world go down the tubes for a long time. And I see the direction it's going, and I see what people are doing and all the things that people are saying on YouTube. A lot of people believe in Jesus. But right now, people don't believe that Jesus was the Lord and Savior. Most of them don't. Most of them believe he was just some good guy. And that's what this whole Project Bluebeam was supposed to be. Some Buddha's going to show up in the sky, and Muhammad and Christ, it's all going to be one big, one world religion. They're going to tell you that your religion's been wrong. I guess they can tell you, well, Christianity killed people, so therefore Christ is bad. Well, it wasn't Christianity, of course. It wasn't a group of people following Jesus and his teachings, which were love, but it was the devil that took over these organizations and infiltrated them and did all this evil and murder. But they're going to use all the violence and hate that's been done by Islam and Christianity and all the other religions, and try to tell us then that we shouldn't believe in any of these teachings, that we've been misunderstanding these teachings, and that Jesus isn't our Lord and Savior. And then we need to drop that and accept the new one world government and cooperate so that we can have peace now. And of course, this fits quite well with what I know the Bible teaches, that the last big final deception is going to have to do with AI and worshiping government, which is the law of Moses, and getting the mark of the beast upon your hand to your forehead is literally what the Bible describes as the laws of Moses, and accepting and signing the covenant as they did on Mount Sinai. This we will do. We're going to have to sign an agreement when we go into the Great Tribulation. As we go and the tribulation starts to happen, the Antichrist comes, I'm absolutely certain that we're going to be required to sign, whether it's with an ink pen or automatic pen, or some some checking a box and clicking it and saying we agree to it or something on the internet. Perhaps we've been doing it now for a long time. Everything that we've been using, the Facebook and the YouTube, we have these little agreements we have to sign. They keep popping up new agreements that we don't even read. And I think in some cases they believe that by continual use, you've already accepted it. So I think this is going to be so big, what's about to come. It's going to be so huge an event and so colossal, important, the signature that they're going to require. Your permission. You must choose the mark of the beast. And there's going to be some luring. Of course, if you want to buy or sell and eat and live, you're going to have to sign it. Not necessarily true. If you want to live outside of society in the mountains and eat acorns, that's fine. I don't think they can stop you because that's why they need your signature. That's why they need your approval, your agreement. I think that's why they got us all to be so disgusted with the world and the way things are going with the transgenders. And we're all for Trump, and he's gonna usher this in, and we're all gonna, I think a lot of people are gonna say Trump's just trying to save the world. That's what happened with Hitler, He said, just give me 4 years. That's all I ask. Just give me 4 years to be like a dictator and I'll fix it. And they gave it to him. Well, that ended badly. And I think Trump's gonna, in a sense, he's going to do a lot of things that you wouldn't think a person could get away with. Might even be illegal. Firing people and doing things in wars and just executive orders and stuff. And a lot of people say it's not legal, but there were precedents set by the other presidents, and they did this all on purpose. And it's going to sound good, less taxes and la la la, and make your life better. But the AI is not going away, and this new money system that they're going to bring in, and the law and order. And you say, well, yeah, we need law and order. I don't think so. I think that's going to be the demise of mankind. The law and order is going to be slavery. It's going to be the death knell for much of mankind, if not pretty much everybody. I keep hearing it everywhere. It's like somebody's telling us every day in the YouTube or in the Tiki-Talkie or the X or wherever you go. Rumble. Everybody's scared. Everybody says it's coming. And the government even is putting people out like Cliff High and Whitney Webb and stuff. And, oh, it's coming. And Joe Rogan, oh, it's coming. And Tucker Carlson, oh, it's coming. But they're all kind of like, oh, but we love the Christians. And, boy, we're going to take this country back. But they're ignoring all these other things that Trump is doing. Friends, things are about to happen. And I'm so glad because I am so tired of living in this world where the stress and the anxiety is like this. Now, I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to get out so that I never have to drive a car again. If I could get I wish I had my old 1961 Ford, or I had a couple old vehicles, and I had a 1965 Galaxy, and I had a Duster, and I had different cars. If I had one of those old cars, I'd be all right. Because I can work on those. But now it probably costs a pretty penny to even get one of those things that runs. But you're kind of stuck like Chuck here in this world right now. And we're all sick of it. And they're going to make things easier for us. Or it's going to be apparently easier if we accept the new system where we won't have to find our wallet and our numbers. We'll just have a mark right stamped on our forehead. They'll just know who you are. Face recognition or whatever. And that'll probably come months later. To begin with, you're just going to join another system. Give them another 8-digit numeral. Make sure you have a capital and a exclamation mark or some squiggly mark as well as numbers and letters. And it's got to be something you'll never remember. So write that down, put that somewhere safe so you don't lose it. If you do, you're probably going to have another rigmarole to go through that day to get back into your thing. But all the problems are going to be going away. And maybe they'll crack down on these car companies making parts that you can't get off unless you got a special wrench or, why don't they just make those little electrical connectors that pop on? Why don't they just have a simple button to push that pops off that anybody could push? It doesn't have to be, child-proof. Ain't no child going to go up inside your engine trying to get that connector off. And if they did, all that would happen is your car wouldn't run. But it ain't going to fall off with maybe it's something like just a little white switch right on the side of the connector. You could push up or down. You can easily get to it. But no, they have to make all of this so difficult. They want to wear you out in your mind. They want to wear you out in your body. And I don't know why. In all these years, there hasn't been one group of people that said, we've had enough. I was talking about people hearing voices, that the government has this ability and this is their plan. They're going to try and drive us crazy. And we're looking for this event to happen. But I'll tell you something. It's already been happening for a while. I can take you back in time. And no, I'm not going to describe the whole issue and bore you with that. But I can go back to when I was, say, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I can remember my dad at that time, and my mother, my brothers and my sister, my relatives, and all of my friends and all the people that I knew. And life was pretty good at that time. Because I was a Jehovah's Witness. My mom and dad were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I didn't know what was going on. I just went to the meetings with them and did what they said. And they told me this is the truth, and I believed it. And things seemed pretty great. And at that time, I could tell you, beyond any doubt, that man that I knew as my father would never, I guarantee, never betray me. He would not have ever left me, hurt me, abused me, lied to me, shunned me, hated me. That would have been an impossibility. And at that time, when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, if you would have told me that was going to happen someday, I wouldn't have believed you at all. But friends, somehow, all of that has happened. My dad he literally told me he doesn't even love me. The last thing I heard him say, just about the last thing I heard him say. And he's told me, quite a few times he didn't want anything to do with me. And I don't even know who this person is, honestly. But the Lord told me when I was 10. I didn't know when I was 9, but when I was 10, the Lord told me. And I've told you guys that experience, and I don't want to go into that here. But the Lord told me at 10 years old that my dad was going to do that, and I was going to be alone, that I would lose my entire family. I didn't really understand it, but he told me. And from that moment on, my family started disintegrating. I can tell you that there's no way my father would have done that. It would have taken a great deception. A deception so great, so profound, that it would fool everyone on this earth, everyone. And if it were possible, even the elect. It's happened. In those years, I think since World War II, I do think that there are ways that they're trying to deceive us. I do not believe that our government has any legal right or are allowed by the angels, put it that way, to do harm to any human being. Now, that's a pretty amazing statement since we see harm being done to all of us since we were just little kids. This entire system is harm. But what it is this. There are several factors. One, everything we do, we agree to. If you don't agree to it, so for instance, you get into a car and you decide you're going to use a car every day and go on a freeway, 6-lane, 8-lane freeway. You know that it's dangerous and you consent to get in the car and you consent to drive the car. And because of public opinion and because everybody drives and you start off slow, you go ahead and you do it. You have to go to work, and, driving a car is fun. And it doesn't seem so dangerous because, it's probably not too dangerous, except for when you get on a freeway in the middle of a city like Los Angeles and New York and stuff, and between Boston and New York and Washington and all this area in Los Angeles and San Diego and Sacramento and all this. This is a place where you could very likely die in a car accident. So we choose to do these things. We signed our birth certificate because we wanted the benefits, the Social Security and all the unemployment benefits and other things that we might get. Of course, we're going to have to pay taxes, but we do all of this so that we can get credit so that we can buy a home, because everybody wants a home and a car. And we have to work and be a slave the rest of our life to take care of all of this. And meanwhile, we're being lured to be cheating on our spouses because of constant barragement of propaganda and pornography and violence. We're all being stressed out, pushed to our limits. We're losing, they purposefully have Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and different groups. They're experiments, just like Jim Jones. And like I was going to say, this is one of the ways. I mean, you talk about voices in people's heads. Somehow my father and most of my family have been taught things. And those things are in their head and in their heart. And it will choose those things that they've been taught by this society that leads to no or less friction, where they can get along with the government so that they don't threaten them to take them to jail or something. If you keep your nose clean and you go and you get a career and you do everything you're told and work like a good little slave, you will probably be able to afford a home and a car and a motorbike. And you look down on the people who chose to spend their life looking and searching for the truth, wanting freedom, wanting answers. And then there are these other groups that join these religions. They're unhappy with the world. They see what's going on in the world, so they end up getting sucked into a religion. And then that religion somehow convinces and brainwashes them to abandon their own children and families. And so it's not just a matter of, like with Jehovah's Witnesses, that they don't talk to us. That is enough to debilitate many people. If you have your family and those that you love, and all of a sudden one day they all tell you that you're not worthy to be spoken to anymore, and they leave you all alone, it's difficult to come to grips with that. It's a lifetime of struggle, because even those individuals aren't completely perfect in their faith. Most of them haven't seen Jesus. Most of them don't have absolute certainty as to what's going on in the world. So they're shaking and they're starting to lose their faith. I remember I was working in this Perco's as this chef. I was the head cook there. And I'm cooking away, and somebody comes in the restaurant and announces that I'm about to have a baby, that I'm the father, and that we're going to have a child. And all of a sudden, it was so, I was so happy. Honestly, well, there's a lot to that story, but I remember the song on the radio as I was thinking about all of this that day, as I was working back behind the line cooking. And it was the song that had come out, and it was being played about every 5 minutes. And it's the song that probably was the big song that year. And it was Losing My Religion. Something like, that's me in the corner, losing my religion. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but it was always playing, and me and the other cook that was back there, we were always goofing off and just telling jokes and talking, and that I just remember every so often we'd look at each other and go, "That's me in the corner." You know, it 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 is so profound, and it occurred to me then that all of this that we see, this entire world, is designed to leave you like that person in the corner, losing your religion, having a crisis. And people in California, when they have these crises, they get thrown out on the street because their boyfriend throws them out and they're homeless, and they get picked up by the police to take them to jail. They end up telling them they're crazy because they're crying, and they're depressed and they're sad, and they don't know why. They give them medications, and this isn't medication. They lie to them. They tell their parents that there's something wrong with this child. You have to leave him with us. He's a ward of the state now because he's crazy. And the parents obey. You know how many children were left to die in California because their parents believed the government and walked away from their children? And you think, well, they visit them, don't they? No, because they have these issues now. The parents don't even want to be around these kids. Because if you hold people down, strap them down to a gurney and beat them up and put Haldol at their butt, and then they spend 3 months drooling in a corner, and you never came to visit them or tell them you loved them, so one day you're a kid living with mom and dad and your brother and your sister. All of a sudden, one day you have a bad day, stress, nobody knows what's going on. Maybe at school they're trying to lure you into becoming a gay or something, and you don't know how to tell your parents, or whatever's going on in your life. You got so much stress and pressure. Your parents are arguing at home, so you end up flying off the handle and yelling at somebody at school. They call your parents, and your parents say, I don't know what to do with them. They recommend putting you on some medications and stuff. But when you end up going for this visit to the Looney Tunes, and they tie you down and put all this, because you finally flipped your gourd and ran through the house screaming and broke a window. And so your parents called the police and they took you away. And your parents never said, I love you, don't worry, I got your back, I'm going to come get you. Or, hey, I won't call the police, I understand you're stressed out, we love you. But no, it never happened. Because your parents started believing in the Antichrist, the beast, the government. And they handed you over. And you kept waiting for your mother and father. And you knew, beyond a doubt, you knew your mom, your dad, your brother, your sisters, your friends would never betray you. But they never came. They left you in there. And you tried breaking out. And so they put you in a worse place, in solitary. And then they came in and beat you up some more. And you were fighting to get out. Where's my mom? And they're telling your mom on the phone, he's crazy, you need to leave him in here. And so parents never come. They don't save you. Finally, you calm down. You're drooling over there, and they've broken your spirit. They've whooped you. Now you're over there in a corner like a little docile nobody. They've done a lobotomy on you. And sometimes you get a faint memory of your parents or the life that you believed was real when you were young, and the shock of that not being true. All that you knew, all that you believed was good, right, and holy wasn't true. And the most holy thing of all was that your parents would never betray you, your family. And it doesn't matter if you're Jehovah's Witnesses. People are being betrayed the same way that Jehovah's Witnesses are being betrayed in other situations, like with the mental health and the mental issues. And there are women that go through this that end up losing control and just having a nervous breakdown. They take them away, and then they end up on drugs, and they're just somewhere halfway in between reality and in a place that no one would want to be. They're in living hell the rest of their life. Nobody cares. Nobody goes and visits them. And some of them, after they're drugged to a place where they don't even remember their past, are given a new little life somewhere in a care center where not only does the world not trust them, but they don't trust themselves. They've been completely possessed now by the lies and hate of this world. They don't trust themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. There's only a very few strong individuals in this world that are going to be able to get through this and remain in possession of their soul and not fall apart. They've just about got us now. And this blue beam thing is about to start. But it's already been here, friends. And it's all the preparation's been done, right? They already have every reason to hate you right now if you don't want to go along with the system. All you got to do, man, is go along with the system. Get your mark on your hand or your forehead, and then you'll be able to buy or sell, and maybe your family can talk to you again, and maybe your friends will like you again. Maybe there'll be some hope of living a perfect little life like a little robot. I am a robot, and I do everything I'm told. Well, remember, you're not going to be happy that way either. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it here. I know that was a crazy video and might have been really boring, and you might not have even made it this far, but if you did, I appreciate it. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But this blue beam's already begun, friends. We've already lost most of our family. And now we've just got ourselves. And what little bit of family we have left, or some friend or something that's still capable of even coming around. We've got to try and wake as many people as we can up, friends, and pull some people from the fire, because it's coming. I love you all, and all we got to do is get out of the world, man. Get out of Babylon. If some of us could just make that step and let go of Babylon, we wouldn't have to drive their cars and be irritated by all their crap and eating their poisons. I think we could be a really good example for mankind. I hope some of you will keep it in mind and pray about it. May the Lord bless you guys. His grace and His peace be with you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.